12 yards. That's the whole distance between a striker and the goal, and it might be the most unfair 12 yards in all of sport. Put yourself on that line for a second. The whole stadium is holding its breath. One player is standing over the ball, and here's the part nobody tells you. You've probably already lost. At the World Cup, the best keepers on earth barely stop one penalty in 6. And it's not because they're slow. It's physics, psychology, and a little game theory, all stacked against them. By the end of this, you'll never watch a shootout the same way again, and you'll see why the one move that saves the most penalties is the move that almost no keeper is brave enough to make. This is why a penalty is almost impossible to save. On paper, it looks fair. The ball sits 12 yards out, 11 meters. One shooter behind it, one keeper in front, and the keeper can't leave his line until the ball is struck. And the target is huge, 8 yards wide, 8 feet tall, a mouth of goal 24 feet across, guarded by one person with about a 2-meter wingspan. It looks like a coin flip. It isn't. Pros score about 78 to 80% of penalties, 4 out of 5. Sit with that. In almost any other one-on-one sport, a tackle, a serve, a face-off, the odds sit near even. Here, the attacker wins 4 times out of 5. The keeper is built to fail, and to see exactly how the odds got this lopsided, you'll have to shrink the whole duel down to one number: time. A struck penalty leaves the boot around 70 miles an hour. From 12 yards, the ball crosses the line in under 0.4 of a second, often between 350 and 500 milliseconds. Now, the keeper. A world-class goalkeeper can react to what he sees in about 150 milliseconds. Elite reflexes. But reacting isn't saving. To physically dive far enough to reach a shot near the post takes about 600 milliseconds. To climb to a top corner, close to a full second. Line them up. The ball needs about 400 milliseconds. The dive needs 600 or more. For scale, a single blink lasts about 1/3 of a second. So a good penalty beats the blink of an eye. The keeper loses the race before he leaves the ground. He literally can't watch the ball and then respond. By the time he's moving, it's in the net. That one mismatch is the engine behind everything else. So if you can't react, what can you do? You move early. The keeper commits as the ball is struck, sometimes before, which means he isn't saving, he's guessing. And like any gambler, he hunts for tells: the run-up, the hips, the shoulders, and above all, the plant foot. Studies show keepers unconsciously throw their dive toward wherever the kicker plants that non-kicking foot. The best keepers spend hours before a match memorizing which way each opponent tends to go. It helps, but only a little, because a well-disguised penalty hides the tells until it's far too late. And there's one region no keeper alive can defend: the top corners, high and just inside the post, what coaches literally call the unsavable zone. Hit it clean, and it goes in, every time. Which raises a strange question. If diving is a losing race, why dive at all? Here's one of the great counterintuitive findings in all of sports science. Researchers charted hundreds of penalties by where the keeper went and whether he saved it. Dive left or right, and keepers saved about 14%. Hold the center, and they saved about 33%, more than double. And yet, keepers dive on roughly 94% of penalties. They almost never just stand there, even though the numbers scream that they should. Why pick the worst play? Psychologists call it action bias. Picture it, you dive the wrong way and it goes in. Bad luck, you tried. But you freeze in the middle and it rolls into the corner you left open. Now it looks like you did nothing. Conceding after acting feels forgivable. Conceding after freezing feels like failure. It's the same instinct that makes us swerve instead of brake, or panic sell a stock. When the stakes spike, doing something feels safer than doing nothing, even when the math disagrees. So keepers dive to protect themselves from blame, not to make the save. The physics is cold. The choice is deeply human. But the shooter has a mind too, and that opens a whole other game. Zoom out, because a penalty is a perfect little problem in game theory, a zero-sum duel where each side is trying to outthink the other. And the cold logic is almost funny. If the keeper dives nearly every time, the shooter should just pass it down the middle. The data backs it up. Shots straight down the center convert at a very high rate, but elite players rarely do it. 2 reasons. First, ego and fear. Roll it down the middle, have the keeper stay, and you've humiliated yourself in front of a billion people. Second, and sharper. If everyone shot middle, keepers would just stop diving, and the whole exploit disappears. So the right strategy isn't always shoot middle, it's randomize. The best takers deliberately mix their placement so no keeper can ever lock onto a pattern. Unpredictability itself is the weapon, and that's exactly where humans break down. Because humans are terrible at being random, and under pressure, our patterns leak. One study found that when their team is losing, keepers dive right about 71% of the time, chasing the ball to one side like a gambler chasing losses, even when the shot goes the other way. They fall for the gambler's fallacy too. A few kicks to the same corner, and they feel like the switch is due, so they lean the other way. Exactly the predictability a sharp taker feeds on. The very best keepers flip the script. They stall, they shuffle, they dare the striker to pick a corner first, trying to turn the mind game back around. So the duel becomes a chess match of tells and counter tells. The taker hiding his plant foot, the keeper hunting for it. And nearly all of it happens in the 2 or 3 seconds before the ball is even touched. So stack it all up. Who actually wins? The physics gives the keeper too little time. The psychology pushes him toward the wrong choice. The game theory hands the edge to a disciplined shooter. The deck is stacked for the striker, which is why the real drama of a penalty was never the reflex save, it's the pressure. Because the one number that swings wildly is the shooter's nerve. When a miss means elimination, conversion collapses below 60%. When a goal means victory, it soars to 92. Same ball, same distance, same 12 yards of physics. The only thing that changed is the mind of the person standing over it. History is full of it. Legends who buried 100 penalties in training, missing the one that mattered, and unknowns becoming heroes for holding their nerve for half a second. So next time you watch a shootout, don't watch the hands, watch the eyes. You're not seeing a test of reflexes, you're seeing a test of who can keep their head while everyone around them loses theirs. That's the penalty kick. Physics, psychology, and a little game theory crammed into 12 yards in half a second. If you learned something, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.